Hey, it's Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. I'm giving my thoughts about Dune Part 2 and Dune Part 1 even into this. So, I don't know if I was thinking about not even doing a video because, I don't want to be, I'm of mixed feelings. I know there's people who hate it, and like book purists. I know there's people who love it, they think it's the greatest thing ever or whatever. So, so I'm going to share, this is not a review per se. I don't have the Blu-ray yet. Obviously, it's not out on Blu-ray yet. To be able to, do my skim through into all particular scenes. I probably will come to do a Dune Part 1 and Part 2 review because I'm going to want them in 4K, and I'll get to that in a minute. Maybe later this year, right? But let's go with my thoughts about what we got so far. So, talking about them just as in terms of being movies, Dune Part 1 was almost like 8.8 to 9.2 out of 10, right? Oh, there's some flaws in there, but it's a great movie, right? Dune Part 2, for reasons I will discuss, is more like an 8 out of 10. And it was the whole point for one particular reason, okay? Okay. So, that's rating them as movies. As adaptations, it's Dune, it's just Dune, Denis Villeneuve's Dune, right? So it's an adaptation of the book Dune. As an adaptation, it's like a 3 or 4 out of 10. It's way better than the 84 adaptation, and about as good an adaptation as the 2000 or so Sci-Fi Channel miniseries. Right? So that's my objective thoughts on where it stands. I think this is one of the 25 greatest science fiction films of all time. Whether you consider them to be separate movies or one big movie, you can debate that. I do not think an extended version would fix my problems with the movie in terms of the flaws. Okay. That being said, so what do I think happened? Why do I think it failed as an adaptation? Okay, so Dune itself has been called one of the most unadaptable books because it's so dense. There's so much material in there. It's like Tolkien in a way. Tolkien didn't like Dune. He thought very negatively of it. But there's a lot of material in there, and a 2.5 hour movie. Lord of the Rings is one book, just like Dune is one book. So it's not enough. Peter Jackson did it all. Did it in 3 parts. That Tolkien was forced to break it up by the publisher because he wanted to publish Lord of the Rings. They were, due to a combination of a paper shortage and concerned about whether it would sell or not. They basically made him break it up into 3 parts. Okay, and that's the form we get today. Likewise, Dune is a lot of material in one book. Very dense setting, okay? And I don't think it could be adapted accurately if you're doing live action in less than a 2 or 3 8 episode miniseries minimum, okay? Animation would probably be better. Maybe like the original Avatar show, like they had roughly 3 episode seasons, if I recall correctly. That might work to do Dune. You can do it in two 20, 30 episode seasons or something like that, half an hour episodes or whatever, anime style. So that's the thoughts on the amount of material. So what did Denis Villeneuve do? You have to cut some things and concatenate some things and change some things to make even if you were doing an accurate adaptation, like say both Shogun movies have done. You still have to cut things out or compress things, right? So what Villeneuve seems to have done. And this dictated all the changes he made. Some people say it's wokeism or whatever. No, there's none of that here. What Villeneuve did, excuse me, I always get the hiccups when I start a video. I don't know why. But anyway, is he eliminated the politics from Dune. Meaning, there's the most fascinating thing to a lot of us is not the science fiction, it's not the psychedelics, it's the complex politics that evolved over more than 10,000 years of history in the Milky Way, of the anti-AI stuff, the weird machinery and human alteration they make to compensate for the fact there's a deliberate limit on what computers are allowed to do. No AI, no super intelligent computers and all that. So it's a setting dictated by the politics that evolved, and that's what most of us who love it find the most fascinating about it. Okay, so. But when you eliminate that, right? When you replace it with something. Well, Villeneuve seems to replace it with a straightforward sort of medieval war model of two ruling houses in a medieval setting being played by the king slash emperor against one another, and that, like, we've seen this story before, right? And it's a fairly decent model if you're going to look at the politics. But what that did, okay, is it forced him to change some characters and limit. For example, I'm disappointed, but I recognize this is probably the first thing to go. The full spoilers for the novel and the movies, by the way, guys. It's only 50 years old, right? 60 years old. Hey, so when Thufir Hawat was captured by the Harkonnens and poisoned, he was forced to become their exclusive mentat, the way he was for House Atreides, which is the right thing. Most mentats are consultants; they don't work specifically for one house or other, because they're very rare. Okay, Thufir was such an esteemed mentat that he could dictate his terms and became an exclusive vassal of House Atreides. And Baron Harkonnen wanted everything the Atreides had. Once Peter DeVries was killed by Duke Leto's revenge, Dewey's revenge, he basically poisoned Thufir with the poison that he only had the cure for, not the stupid cat in David Lynch's film with the cat milk. He gave him a cure for the poison. And Thufir, under the guise of helping Baron Harkonnen and House Harkonnen, undermined House Harkonnen and almost brought them down in 2 years. That whole thing in the movie where you see the last soldier of House Atreides fighting Fade Rautha, that's something, and him not being given the drug that made him weak, that's something Thufir Hawat arranged. And the Baron kind of knew about it because he always believed in people being tested, but he was not the one who arranged it. He didn't know Thufir. I'm trying to remember the whole plot line when he figured out what Thufir was doing. But in any case, that was a 2-year plan by Thufir to try to take out Harkonnens. He did major damage to their infrastructure along the way. But obviously something like that would get eliminated because there's just so much material in there. The whole thing with the imperial court politics with Saddam. That's another thing. They turned Saddam into a sort of waste of Christopher Walken as an actor. Total waste. They by eliminating the politics of the imperial court, they had nothing for Walken and Saddam to do, so he was left to play him as a sort of depressed guy fearing losing his power. There's an element of truth to that, but he's an angry guy, and he was very politically, and Saddam Carino IV made many, many mistakes that were making the Lancerai, which the group of nobles want to consider removing from Duke Leto, who was basically his male heir, right, closely male relative. And in political terms, that's the reason Duke Leto never married Jessica, because he kept his concubine. His plan was, when Jessica gave him a son, was to let House Atreides continue through there, and enforce the Emperor to a position where he would marry one of the Emperor's daughters, become the Emperor's heir, take power, and then the Carino line would continue through Princess Irulan, or one of our sisters, most likely Irulan because she's the oldest. Okay, so that was Leto's kind of ongoing plan and all of that, right? Now, so obviously you look at the politics, you look at all the court stuff. So so the Emperor has nothing to do. Okay, so those are some of the faults of the, and he didn't replace that with anything, right? But here's my biggest complaint. Okay, this movie did to Chani what Peter Jackson did to Denethor. Okay, Peter Jackson did the version of Denethor you saw in the movie was pure character assassination. Okay, Denethor. Excuse me. So how to explain it without going deep into the lore? I don't need to do that because this video will go on forever. I want this to be like maybe 15 minutes, sort of my thoughts about Dune 2. Okay, and obviously I'm giving you a lot of the negative front, the things I was disappointed about, but I will give you some positives at the end, some strong stuff. Okay. So Chani's character assassination, she was nothing like that. And because they also compressed the time between when Paul and Jessica went into the desert in the Fremen and when he returned, which was 3 years, two things happened. Alia was not born yet, so one of my sort of favorite characters is Saint Alia of the Knife, right? Literally, what she did in the book is she goes among the wounded, surviving Harkonnen and Sardaukar, and she's slitting throats, and the Fremen are cheering her on because they hate the Harkonnens that much, right? And she could become Saint Alia of the Knife. That's a minor thing. But Chani and Paul had a child that the Harkonnens found the siege where they were and killed them. Killed Chani's child and Paul's child. She hated it, and she was all on board with Paul from the beginning. She was his. There's an old sort of real world saying like something goes like every man does something. Every man who's competently great has a great woman beside him or behind him. Chani was that. She's a great woman who knew her husband was on task, knew he had a purpose he was following. The whole and I'm not going to complain about the change to the nature of the Fremen so much, because that's the politics I can talk about. We can talk about, but the nature of Chani, no, just no. There's a whole point and a half of my I can't because they changed it because of the politics. Again, you eliminate all the complex politics, the Harkonnens murdering the Fremen and all that sort of stuff, and you get. So they replaced Chani being a disgruntled bitch, essentially, right? So there's that. So that's my most major complaint. But there are other little nitpicks I can make, but I'm not going to make them. So I've been here I've given you about 10 minutes of my thoughts so far. Most of the negatives, why I feel it's a failed adaptation. So what makes it a great movie? Okay, people complain about the pacing. The only legitimate part to complain about the pacing would be early on in part 2. And think about this, I think if you were to watch part 1 and part 2 together, right, meaning right into one, all the pacing complaints, because I did that. I watched the end of part 1 just to refresh my memory like an hour or two before. I kind of skimmed through it. All those pacing issues, because it flows naturally from the end of part 2. So all the setup is there and what you know. So I think that issue, that's why that's not a big issue to me. Okay, the visuals were beautiful. The setting, the CG, both the practical, because there were some practical shots, and the CGI with the background, especially when they had the sandworms. A nitpick, I would have liked if they didn't hide the Fremen, if they didn't, if it was more clearly visible what Paul was doing when he first rode the sandworm, when he first called Shahlud and rode the sandworm, like if it were, it was more obscured and blended, because that's a technique they do in a lot of CGI stuff, where when it's in daytime, they sort of put something like a lot of sand or rain or something to blend it to make the special effect not look as like a special effect, right? So that's a nitpick, but it's still a great scene. I'm not going to compare it to previous versions of Dune. One of the best parts of the original version was Paul on the sand riding the sandworm for the first time as well. Personally, I like Hans Zimmer has bad luck in my opinion. Every film they say that I've watched that Hans Zimmer has done where I could say he has a legitimately good score. He's done remakes or follow-ups like Man of Steel, arguably a great score, right? Nothing is as good as Superman, the movie score that John L. Williams did. Every time I hear anything with Superman that's good, I hear Hans Zimmer's music playing. Not Hans Zimmer, John L. Williams' Superman playing, okay? Same thing with this. The Dune 84 score is the best thing about the movie, okay? Far and away, it's an awesome score. Toto did it, that's not why it's awesome. So I hear that whenever I watch either the other two adaptations of Dune, right? So bad luck for Hans Zimmer. There's a couple other movies like that where he's done where kind of like a previous remakes or part twos or whatever. That being said, it's still a great score. The acting, I mean, I don't know if they did what they do with Zendaya just because, is she a bad actress? I don't know. I mean, I only seen her on 2 or 3 things, and I can't judge her negatively for the subpar writing in them. Is that just because she's pretty and dark skinned? I don't mean that is she filling a token slot? Pretty dark skinned girl. Is that what they want? Is that what it's come down to? We have to. I have nothing against her. She's not, as far as I know, she hasn't gone out there and done the stupid stuff that Brie Larson has done, or any other like these Hollywood female stars where they just rail on the fans and call them sexist for not liking these bad movies that they're in. Zendaya seemed like a perfectly normal person to me, who unfortunately is stuck in this bad role, and I would have loved to see Zendaya have a shot at the real Chani. Okay, Paul Chalet, is that his name? Paul Chalet. He did a pretty good job as Paul. Not Paul Chalet. Tim Chalet did Paul. He did a pretty good job there. You know, Javier Bardem as why man, I'm so tired. I had my crazy next door landlady, not landlady, neighbor woke me up. Well, not woke me up. I woke up, went to the shower, and I heard this hammering in the hall. And apparently, she thought someone locked her in an apartment. She was trying to hammer the door open, and I've had a headache since I heard that hammering. Anyway, Javier Bardem's role, the role itself was fine. It was very enjoyable. Had a little bit of nice comedy when you needed it, but the character, Stilgar's character, didn't come across that way in the book to me. So I was a little. But Javier Bardem's a great actor. So the cast did a great job with the roles that they were given. Those who were allowed to do a great job, which did not include Zendaya or Christopher Walken as Saddam Carino IV. Okay, so that's kind of where I stand on most things. I like the visuals of how they presented Gady Prime and the Harkonnens. They're not quite as gaudy, extreme like that in the book. Just to let you prep you for But again, as far as the movie making, it was a very nice visual, right? So again, this is one of the 25 best science fiction films of all time. It's an enjoyable watch. The only disappointing parts to it, not because I'm a book fan, are Zendaya and Christopher Walken. The characters they were given were subpar. Okay, I know Christopher Walken is a way better actor than showed here. I know it. And Zendaya wasn't given a chance to actually act. I can only imagine Villeneuve going, okay, in this scene, you're acting like a stuck-up bitch. 2 scenes later. Okay, Chani, this time you're acting like an arrogant bitch. 5 scenes later. Okay, Chani, we'll have a big change up here. In this one, you're going to act like a stupid bitch. Right? And then, what else could he even tell her? Because there's no writing for that or act other than acting like a bitch all the time. And that's the writing. It's not on the actress. It's on the director and the writers who create that crap. Okay? So, I mean, so those are my Dune II thoughts. I'm not going to belabor this. It's like 17 minutes. If you have any questions, ask them down below. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike. Share it out there. Thank you for listening. I will probably do, income allowing, because there's an issue coming up later this year for me, a review of Dune Part 1 and 2 when I have the full Blu-rays that I could buy, like the 4K set, Steelbox set, or whatever, which probably would be sometime like in November that would come out, which would be the bad time for me. Anyway, have a nice weekend. Stay safe. I am out of here.